All right, Bronco Nation, welcome to my Three Keys to the Game preview of the Boise State versus Utah State matchup. Boise State 0-0 coming into this week. What happened before, the last three non-conference games, don't matter toward as far as impacting Boise State's number one goal every season, which is to go out and win their conference. That's always goal number one. Andy Avalos said it himself. That's always goal number one for Boise State. So whatever happens in the preseason, before the conference, before the non-conference matchups, Boise State wants to win those games. They should win those games. They need to win those games for other reasons. But when it comes to the number one goal, which is going out and getting that conference crown every single year, these are the games that matter. And this, as far as I'm concerned, is the biggest game so far on Boise State's schedule. Because this game against Utah State suddenly becomes really, really big. A Boise State team that's struggling so far with a 1-2 start, a Utah State team that's off to a 3-0 start, a win against Air Force, Utah State being in the same division as Boise State in that Mountain Division. And there's some really tough teams on Boise State's schedule. This is one of the toughest Mountain West schedules they've ever played. So the head-to-head is going to come huge because Boise State is not necessarily guaranteed to come through this conference slate completely clean. There's probably going to be at least 1 or 2 losses on that slate. And the head-to-head matchup against Utah State at the end of the year, Utah State and Wyoming, of course, looking like two of those top teams, and Air Force also looking pretty good in the conference round division. But definitely Utah State, one of those teams that Boise State's going to have to contend with for that Mountain Division crown. Sorry, I misspoke there earlier. But Mountain Division crown, that head-to-head with Utah State is going to become so big at the end of the year. Especially if Boise State's not coming through the squeaky clean, perfect conference record style. So this is a big game against Utah State. Boise State versus Utah State at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So make sure you guys get yourself a healthy, nutritional breakfast while you're tailgating. Pour yourself a bowl of cereal or something. It's going to be noon Eastern Time, but 10 a.m. Mountain Time. It's on CBS, so it's the big noon kickoff for the East Coast. It's going to have a lot of eyes on this program. The rest of the conference is going to be watching this game for sure. Going to try and find out what this Boise State team is made of coming up into conference play. Is this a team that they still need to be worried about? Boise State has a chance to reassert themselves, to reestablish that dominance, that blue-collar way, that Andy Avalos way, to show that they are that team that is to be feared in their conference at their conference level in the group of 5. But this is a team that definitely needs to show something in this week, in this matchup, and I think they're going to. Andy Avalos, this has been the biggest game for him all along. He said, like he said himself, the great thing with their goals is win or lose in the non-conference, it doesn't change anything because winning the conference championship is always their number one goal. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I'm not getting the quote exactly right. But his main point was that the conference championship is always the biggest goal. And I think Boise State is ahead. Before we get into Three Keys to the Game, I start previewing my normal stuff, I want to just say this up front. Boise State's ahead of schedule right now. I thought that Oklahoma State game should not have been as close as it was. The fact that we were close enough that the referees really were responsible for us losing the game, the fact that we were even close enough that mattered, it shows that Boise State has made a huge step forward, much further ahead of schedule than I thought they would be at this point in Andy Avalos' rebuilding year with this program. Is there a lot to fix? Absolutely. There are a ton of things that Boise State needs to fix. If you want more info on that, you can watch my Reasons for Defeat video breaking down the Oklahoma State loss. But my main point here is that Boise State is definitely moving in the right direction, and they're definitely ahead of what I thought Boise State would be at this point in the rebuild year, and they're going to present a huge challenge for Utah State. I think it's going to be a very good game. Series overall, Boise State is 20-5 all-time against Utah State. That's going back to the FCS days as well. Utah State last won in 2015. Big win for them when Boise State was playing at Utah State. But Boise State has won the last 5 games, including a 42-13 victory last season to open the year when Boise State was playing that reduced conference schedule. So Boise State has traditionally won big with Utah State. There have been a couple close ones, and Utah State managed to grab a game here and there, and such that 2015 game is big. And this is a good Utah State team. 3 wins so far against Washington State. Got that Power 5 win to start the season. One against a good FCS program in North Dakota, and then showed the ability to grind it out in the end with a nail-biting finish against Air Force 49-45, where Logan Bonner actually got injured and Peasley had to come in and was able to finish off the game. So Utah State showing that they have two capable quarterbacks that can go out there and win games for them. It's not a team that's all the way back. This is not the Utah State of the Jordan Love era as far as competitive edge yet, but it is a team that's definitely moving in the right direction and is going to present quite a significant challenge to Boise State. Let's talk about key players here. So for Boise State, it's going to be, the usual faces, Bachmeier, Shakir, those guys always key players. But I'm going to focus on three key players that I want to talk about specifically Boise State. Number one here is Helani. So far, last game, his first real game back. Because UTEP, he was a limited snap count. Oklahoma State, the first game that he was fully back into the game, and he struggled. And I think that's to be expected after being out for so long with injury, and you're not really practicing at the same level, you're not used to getting hit. He fumbled in that game, and he looked rusty. Now, a lot of that has to do with Boise State's running struggles, period. We're going to talk about that when I get to three keys to the game. But he did look rusty. So 2.9 yards per carry average so far on the season. I think he's going to take a big step forward this year in whatever role he has, whether that's Boise State trying to stick to the running game, which I really hope they don't, or trying to move him into the passing game. I think he's going to look better, and he's going to definitely be a player in whatever role he's in. He's going to need to play great in that role if Boise State wants to be able to come in here into Utah State and win and upset their 3-0 season so far. Skinner, safety, obviously, we all know that Boise State, but we might have some non-Boise State fans watching this, so I just want to clarify that. JL Skinner, you've probably seen the highlights because he had a huge hit against Oklahoma State. So even if you're not a Boise State fan, you might be familiar with this guy. This guy is an animal. He goes out and just destroys people. I wouldn't be surprised in the future if we see a wide receiver or running back just kind of take a knee when he comes to lay them out, because man, does he blow people up. He's amazing to watch. 32 tackles so far, leads the team. And then Riley Wimpy, a guy who missed the first half against Oklahoma State, and it showed. And the second half, his presence really was able to stop that running game, Warren's running game for Oklahoma State, that was really grinding through Boise State. So he's a guy with 25 tackles. Those guys are going to need to come up big against a Utah State team whose offense has been extremely explosive. I have the stat written down here somewhere, but they have put up tons of yards against their opponents. They had that game against Air Force. I mean, Air Force put up over 600 yards, but I think Utah State had over 500 yards. So it was incredible just how explosive this offense is for Utah State, especially with Bonner at the helm. Hope he's able to come back for this one for Utah State's sake and quality of the matchup. But it's going to be Skinner and Wimpy are going to have to step up big for Boise State, especially with a defensive line that is depleted, that is not showing good depth. They're going to need to be the guys because the D-line is probably not going to stop the running back at the first level. So the linebacker core and secondary in general is going to have to step up huge in this one, and Boise State's going to have to be much more aggressive in their play calling to supplement for the defensive line struggles. All right, Utah State, key players here. First one, I'm putting a question mark next to him because I'm not sure he's going to be able to play. He was injured towards the end of that Air Force game, ended up having to come out, didn't come back in. I was searching all over online prior to this. I couldn't find anything that confirmed whether he'd be able to play in this one or exactly what type of injury he has. So maybe some of you who are better connected or who are able to find those stats could update me in the comments. But as far as I could find out, I didn't see if he was going to be able to play. But if he is able to play, he's a huge player for Utah State. The Arkansas State transfer has been huge for them. Over 780 yards passing this season, 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And he's had some huge games, 390 passing yards versus North Dakota and 253 yards passing versus Air Force. So he's going to be big, huge for Utah State. If he's out, it's going to be a very different game for you. They're not going to be as competitive. It's not going to be as good a game to watch from, which it would be good for Boise State, honestly. But as far as a fan perspective, as far as a fan of football wanting to watch a good game, we all hope that. And just as a human being, I hope he's okay. But as fans of the game, it's going to be a much more competitive matchup if he's in there. So Logan Bonner, big key player for Utah State. Wide receiver Devin Tompkins here. So guy you wouldn't expect to be a star, necessarily a star player, just looking at the stats. But the great thing about these Mountain West programs is they take the guys that aren't getting all the top group Power 5 offers, and they take those guys and they find those gems in the rough. Sorry, those gems in the rough who are just go-getters who go out, and it's not just a Boise State thing. I mean, Boise State is really good at doing that, but it's a Mountain West thing in general. That's why we're the best Group of 5 conference, even if we don't get respect for it, because the coaching staff of the Mountain West are able to go out and find these great players that are getting underappreciated. So Devin Tompkins, guy who's only 5'8", he's shorter than I am, 5'8", 155 pounds. So this is a small guy, but he has so far 454 yards receiving coming into this year. So he's played 3 years of football so far. This is his fourth. Coming into this year, he had only 815 yards receiving. And in the first 3 games, he has 454 yards receiving for 18.2 yards per catch average, our yards perception average, for 3 touchdowns and a long of 75. I've watched this guy play in several games because I watched the Utah State game, and I was able to catch a good bit of the Air Force game. Sorry, the Washington State game, and I caught a good bit of the Air Force game. And he is just electric on the field. So Boise State is going to have their hands full trying to stop this guy, especially because once he gets the ball in his hands, he is very, very elusive. And then the final player here for Utah State, Boise State's going to want to keep an eye on, is Justin Rice. He's going to be a real threat, especially when Boise State tries to run. Linebacker for them, big guy, 6'2", 225 pounds. Unlike Tompkins, he has all the measurables. Former player at Fresno State in 2019, he had 121 tackles, and I guess he got tired playing up against the other teams. The Mountain figured he could beat them, in the West Division, and wanted to come and give a crack at Boise State, so he transferred over to Utah State. So 30 tackles so far this season, 14 last week versus Air Force, and he's going to get his crack against Boise State, and Boise State's going to have to come up with some kind of scheme to get him out of the way because he is a big threat in their defense. So that's Utah State. Let's look at the keys to the game here. First off, bury the running game. And I don't mean bury it in the opponent's defense. I mean bury it, clean it up. It's dead. It's gone. We've mourned it. It's past. Move on. Boise State does not have a running game. And if they keep trying to be a balanced team, they are going to lose a lot more games than they've lost so far. Boise State has to acknowledge the fact that the offensive line this year they were bad last year, but they are worse this year, and they cannot block to save their life. They couldn't block against UCF or Oklahoma State. That's somewhat expectable. That's somewhat expected. Whew, it's late over here. Sorry, that's somewhat expected because those teams are good. But they also couldn't block against UTEP. Boise State, before the fourth quarter against UTEP, only had 50 yards rushing. And then they were able to get up over 100 by just running the ball in the fourth quarter against UTEP's depleted second-string guys. But Boise State has 202 yards so far on the season. In 3 games, that's it. They are averaging 2.1 yards per carry. In the first game, they had 20 rushing yards. In the second one, they had 121. But like I said, 50 before that fourth quarter hit. And 61 last week against Oklahoma State. And that's with their best running back, George Halani, back. Boise State does not have a running game. They need to go full Tim Plow style. I don't know if he's holding himself back. I don't know if Avalos is holding him back. I don't know what's going on. I'm not in those meetings. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know. I'm not a fly on the wall. But I wish I was, because I would love to find out why Boise State is trying to push something that obviously doesn't work and is losing them football games. Boise State needs to become the air raid style program. Program makes it seem like they're going to be that forever. I don't want Boise State to be air raid style the next 20 years, but at least this season they need to be the air raid style team that they are clearly built to be, with an incredibly deep wide receiver room, a quarterback who is able to throw, who plays well when he has multiple receivers that he can get the ball out to, and a line that is absolutely unable to block in the running game. And running backs who are actually good in the passing game. Boise State needs to bury the running game, clean their hands of it. They're done. If Boise State rushes for under 20, if Boise State has under 25 carries, this running back carries, out of all the offensive snaps this game, Boise State only has 25 or less carries, I guarantee they will win. But if Boise State has more than that, It means they're forcing it. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to win this. So you can quote me on it. I think if Boise State carries the ball under 25 times, they will win this football game. They have got to find other ways to supplement for that running game. Short passes, screen passes, whatever, outlet routes, just get something else down the field because the running game is not working. Cyrus has 61, Halani has 50, and Van Buren has 37 rushing yards. That's a clear case of a running game that's failing. Move away from it. We're done. Key number one, bury the running game. It's dead. It's gone. Maybe it can revive next season, but on to the passing game. All right, second one here is bring back the trick plays. Boise State, that's another thing with this offense. They really haven't been, they haven't really utilized trick plays. And we saw that last season, and we saw that a little bit in 2019. At Boise State, every year, really since since Chris Peterson left, has had less and less trick plays. 2014 we had several trick plays, especially Jay Ajayi ran hook and ladder twice. There were a lot of stuff moving around. In 2015 and 16 there was a decent amount in there. And then 2018 it kind of dipped away. In 2019 there was really not that many. 2020 there were barely any at all. And then 2021. Obviously, I think we've only run the one trick play, and the guy was wide open. I try to remember who was throwing to who was receiving. I believe Bowens was the passer, and Cutter might have been the receiver. But whoever it was, the wide receiver was wide open. The defense was not ready, not expecting it. So, it just needs a little bit of better execution. But the fact that the guy was so wide open shows that it's there. Double pass, multiple handoffs, throw back to the quarterback, flea flicker, fumble rooski, something to give the defense a different look, to get them guessing a little bit. And you know what? If you throw a double pass enough times, even once, it's going to make the secondary kind of think twice about coming up at you, and maybe you can turn that double pass just into a regular, kind of screen running play. What I'd love to see is quarterback rollout. Do you remember the days when Jared Zabransky used to fake the handoff to the running back and stick the ball on his hip and kind of like walk away and then take off for a run? Those were great. And I think that Boise State, especially with the failures in the running game and the defense just swarming down on the running back, Hank Bachmeier, he can move when he needs to. And especially if we were to use Jack Sears situationally in the run/pass game, we'd kind of move him in here. And I don't know if he's 100% yet, and that might be why we haven't seen him at all. But Jack Sears is another quarterback. I'm not advocating for him to take over for Bachmeier, but I'm advocating to use him in some role, to use his skills, his running ability, and his accurate passing. Put him down where he can contribute. And I'm kind of going off track on this key here, but I just want to say, I think he's a guy who can contribute not just in a trick play element, though I think he would work great in that rollout scheme, but he's a quarterback that would work out not just in the trick play, but also in a situational package, something like third and short, or in the red zone where Boise State is having some difficulties. So, but the main point here, and I'm sorry I got off track there, but the main point is Boise State, bring back the trick plays. Bring back that energetic, creative style that made Boise State so special, so much fun to watch, and so hard to play because you never knew what was going to happen next, especially with the struggles in the running game. You got to find something else to take the defense's attention off, to kind of move them away from your other receivers and get something going. And a trick play is a huge way to pump up the crowd. It's a huge way to get your own team into it, and it makes this defense start second-guessing themselves a little bit. So key number 2 here is bring back the trick plays. All right, third key, new faces step up. So just real quick about the defense, because my main point here is for the offense, but real quick about the defense. The defensive coordinator already said, or maybe it was the D-line coach, whichever one is reported, said that the D-line is so thin right now, they might have to see some true freshmen play in the matchup here against Utah State. So whoever those new faces are, and you know what? I welcome it, because whoever's down there right now is not working out. The D-line does not look dominant. The secondary and the linebackers look pretty good overall, especially some of those players in the secondary. Oladipo, Skinner, the Buff, they look really good. But the D-line has been the real weak spot of this program. Absolutely no pass rush. absolutely no ability to stop the running game. So some fresh faces, some infusion of new life in that defense would be awesome. And then also the new guys in the defense that we kind of stepped up against UTEP, but kind of faded away against Oklahoma State. I'm talking about Oladipo here specifically with 2 picks against UTEP, but no recorded tackles in Oklahoma State. Boise State has some new faces on this program that have been brought in with the recruiting classes, or just guys that have been on the roster for a while, but we just haven't seen. I'm going to talk about that in the offense in a second here. But guys have been on the roster for a while, but we just haven't seen that can really step up and make a difference. And the defense right now, Avalos is really kind of handpicking these guys, the guys who are going to have his mantra, his mojo, his all the way, lay it on the field, go out and just destroy a guy, kind of blue collar, stick your nose in the dirt and destroy someone. Sorry, stick your fist in the dirt and go destroy someone type of guys. And I think that there's some guys on this roster that could definitely step, because we're seeing that every week. We're seeing new guys making plays. And I think that part of the key to Boise State's success going forward is finding those guys who perhaps haven't had a chance to show it yet in previous seasons, or who have just new the team and coming to the 4th week now have had a chance to get used to the feel of this program and might be able to step up, make a big play. So that's especially going to be key on the defensive side. But let's talk about the offense here, new players. We have seen every week guys that either were underutilized in previous seasons or who we haven't ever seen stepping up and playing huge this year. Every week I'm hearing new guys on the offensive side that I barely recognize or don't recognize. I mean, of course, last week it was a Cutter, the transfer from Portland State, who didn't record a single stat last season, who had 4 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. His first time he's ever played for Boise State against Oklahoma State, and he bodies out a defender for a huge touchdown reception. He played great. Bowen's a guy who had 10 receptions in his career so far and has had 5 of those this season. So his entire career, and I believe he's only a sophomore, but so far, in 2 seasons, he's only had 10 receptions. And 3 games in, he already has 5 receptions, 42 yards. Latrell Capels, I believe he's, I'm saying that, I know I'm mispronouncing that name. But anyhow, Latrell Capels, number 7, true freshman, had a big reception last week on a 3rd down play where he got 11 yards out of the reception for a 1st down. Running back to Queen Tyler, who looked good against UTEP, a really speedy guy. I'd love to see him, what he can do. Maybe help the fact that Boise State's unable to block. He might be able to get some speed to the edge for Boise State. I thought he played great against UTEP and cleanup. I'd love to see him. Another guy who was good in cleanup against UTEP, Tyler Crow, got his scholarship this week, announcing on his Twitter page that he got a scholarship this week. So congratulations to this guy. And he's actually 3rd in rushing on the team right now. He has 7 carries for 45 yards. Again, I think all of that, if not most of that, came in cleanup against UTEP. But a guy who runs hard, and if Boise State, I hope they don't, but if Boise State continues to persist with this run game, they've got to do something differently. And maybe kind of mixing in a couple new faces in that locker room or in that running back rotation might be the thing that gets Boise State out of this slump. But like I said, I hope they bury the running game and move on. So that's the 3 keys to the game here. Bury the running game, number 1. 2, bring back the trick plays. And 3, new faces step up. This is kind of a back-to-basics week for Boise State. It's a chance to come in and be the team that has always been so dominant in their conference. They don't go out and lose to fellow conference members that often. This is a chance for Boise State to show that they are still that dominant, number 1, deserving of the largest TV package team that the Mountain West has fought so hard to keep in their conference, and for a good reason. Andy Avalos, it is a real rebuilding year for him. But he has definitely got this team on the right track, and I know that he will have his team ready to go out and play Utah State because he takes these conference games extremely seriously. Boise State was 1 point away from winning against Oklahoma State, and I think that with the way that they are ahead of schedule right now, the fact that Utah State's defense is extremely porous, they've given up over 350 yards in every game, gave up over 400 yards against North Dakota and over 600 yards against Air Force. So the defense is not going to be as tight as what Boise State faced last week. If the offense can move away, from this obsession with the running game that's not working, and Bachmeier can tighten up a few things in his passing, especially when it comes to accuracy and trying to force it. If he can get himself under a little bit more control and have a couple more receivers to throw to, and gets, like I said, a little more dump out routes, get rid of this running game and focus on that passing game. If he can have some more options out there to throw to, and if he can kind of settle himself down a little bit, this defense is going to give up a lot of opportunities for Boise State to go out there and have a big game. And who knows, with how porous this defense has been for Utah State, the running game might even be able to get going. So Boise State's going to have a lot of chances. Utah State's offense, if Bonner is out, it's going to, Bonner, sorry, that's not Bonner. If Bonner is out, it's going to be a very much different offense that takes the field against Boise State. But even if he's in, I think that Boise State's defense, as aggressive as they are, even with the struggles on the defensive line, the defense has gotten better every single week. It might not seem like that if you're just kind of sitting and watching the game, but if you're watching the play calling, if you're watching how these plays are developing, and just how aggressive the defense has gotten more aggressive every single week, they're creating more opportunities for turnovers. So that's especially against UTEP, and they're definitely going out and improving overall. They just got to get the consistency, but individual plays are getting better and better each week. I think they're going to be melding better coming into this one. They're going to have it on the line. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder. So I think Boise State does walk away with a win in this one. I said last week, first time that I was ever predicted a Boise State loss, and unfortunately that one came true. Well, this week I'm predicting a win, and I'm hoping for as much success in my predictions as last week. I'm predicting Boise State 48 versus Utah State 31. I think that it will be very close in the first half, but Andy Avalos has made the second half a major point of emphasis after huge struggles so far in the third quarter, which goes back beyond his tenure. I mean, Boise State had these. If you watched my videos last season, I was continually ranting about the Boise State just slumps in the third quarter. So it's not Andy Avalos' fault. This is something he has to fix, and I think that he's going to have a great focus on it. Boise State, I hope they come out much more dynamic and innovative in their offense, moving towards a pass-heavy attack. I think that their defense plays well enough to keep Bonner or Peasley or whoever it is behind center in track, and the offense is able to pick it up and get a big win in this one. So 48-31, close game in the first half, and Boise State pulls away in the second. That's my prediction for you. That's my 3 keys to the game. Thank you for watching this video. As always, if you watch these videos and enjoy them, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're joining in as a Mountain West fan or Utah State fan, I'm sorry for the prediction there, Utah State, but I don't just do Boise State videos. I do other videos as well. You can look on my channel, General College Football, and I do a lot of stuff talking about the Mountain West. So it should be an exciting game regardless, and I'm hoping for a good game, good sportsmanship by both sides. Thank you for watching this video. Like I said, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, what your 3 keys are, what your score prediction are. I want to hear it all. So thank you for watching this video, and as always, go Big Blue.